is Shannon, and since I'm closing today, I would like to give all of our presentations a round of applause. So let's applaud. So as was mentioned, I'm going to talk more about bugs, but I'm going to have a bit of a focus on what's going on in your stomach. So let's do a quick survey. So who here has ever had a reaction to food? Raise your hand. Yeah, basically everyone in this room. And it's a big problem with the public health. We want to make sure that we're eating food and that the food is good and that it doesn't have any bacteria in it. So a little bit of myself. I'm an undergraduate senior medical lab science student, and I'm presenting my honors thesis on Listeria and E.coli's impact on public health safety. And this is my title. So my table of contents, first I'm going to talk about Listeria monocytogenes, which is a specific strain of Listeria that I'm going to do, and then I'm also going to talk about Listeriosis outbreaks, and then after that I'm going to talk about E. coli, which is the second bacteria I'll be talking about, and then I'm going to talk about STE, which is the Shiga toxin version of E. coli, and that causes big tummy problems. And then I'm also going to talk about why is this such a problem and how can we fix it to prevent this from happening, and some of my closing statements. So first, I'm going to talk about Listeria monocytogenes, and also forgive me if I mispronounce anything. I did practice, but we'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well. So the genus Listeria has various other species. It honestly has a lot, but the species I'm covering is Listeria monocytogenes. And the foundation in the shape of this is that it is facultative intracellular gram-positive rod, and it has a diameter of 0.5 micrometers, and it has a length of 0.5 to 2.0 micrometers. To test this is catalase positive, oxidase negative, CAMP test positive, and a bile esculin positive. The colony morphology is that it grows optimally on sheep blood agar. Colonies appear as small white to gray with a narrow zone of beta hemolysis. So it's a little spread out, but the one on the left is the Listeria monocytogenes on the blood agar plate, and the one on the right is kind of a zoomed in colony to see that you can see they're round. And it does not form a capsule or a spore. And then also in the middle, you can see the microscopic examination. So it's purple, meaning it's gram positive, and the cute little rods. Not cute, but I think they're cute. They are motile by Pyrrhicius flagella when cultured at 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, and they're non-motile when cultured at 37 degrees Celsius. So they're a little picky, but it's okay. So they have many virulence factors, so there's going to be a few slides on this. But so a virulence factor is defined as a metaphorical doorway and entrance to where the bacterium enters the cell and wreaks havoc and promotes infection. And L monocytogenes has the ability to possess biofilms that further enhance its function to withstand harsh environments and temperatures, and the expression of efflux pumps and a carriage of mobile genetic elements. So I'm going to go into what every single one of these virulence factors is in a bit. So first I'm going to talk about the two major efflux pumps, MDRL and LDE. MDRL detoxifies the fluoroquinolone antibiotics in an intergalactin dye, ETBR. And the virulence factors specifically are interlins, Listeriolysin O, or known as LLO, phospholipase, and a bacterial surface protein known as ACT-A. So this is part 2 of the virulence factors. So interlins, they're surface proteins that bind to the GI epithelia cells via host protein cadherin. And Listeria has two kinds of interlins, interlin A and interlin B. So as previously mentioned, we're going to talk about LLO right now, phospholipase protein that's responsible for the beta hemolysis of L monocytogenes on the blood agar. And beta hemolysis, when you look at it on the blood agar, it looks almost translucent, so when you hold it up, you can see it. It's like yellowish, it's kind of cool. And phagocytizing, so L monocytogenes can phagocytize the internalized vacuole of the virus from a host cell with the genetic material left behind, including LLO. And polymerization, the bacterium can disrupt the normal cellular process, and ACT-A is stimulated when bacteria moves through the body and helps push it along between cells and results in the avoidance of antibody detection. So to summarize all of this word vomit, basically, Listeria monocytogenes, it can be a real problem to the body, and it just loves to cause problems. And so when we want to detect it, because hopefully we can detect it, It has numerous detection methods, thankfully, but the gold standard is nucleic acid amplification. And what it does is that the interlin A and B are amplified using a multiplex PCR method that increases the sensitivity in the virulence factor gene LLO, and it results in a more precise result in identifying the L monocytogenes. So now I'm going to talk about the disease and what happens when you get infected with Listeria monocytogenes, known as listeriosis. So 1,600 individuals residing in the United States are infected with listeriosis each year, and 260 deaths result. Who are at risk are pregnant women. It can cause miscarriages, stillbirths, premature births. Infants, death is more prevalent in infants and immunocompromised, and of course the elderly mainly. So the reservoir is that it affects soil, water, decaying vegetation, various distal lower digestive tracts of animals such as cattle or sheep. And actually it was primarily focused in livestock, not as humans that much, until 1980, a food-related outbreak occurred in Nova Scotia, Massachusetts. So yay, go Massachusetts! Awesome! And this is part 2 of listeriosis. So it's transmitted via consumption of contaminated food, and symptoms are fever, chills, headache, upset stomach, diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting, and muscle aches. So it's basically you have food poisoning. I'm pretty sure we've all had some form of it, mild or severe. It's not fun. I wouldn't recommend it. You can treat it via sulfametholazole and ampicillin, which is within the azole and penicillin antibiotic families. And patients usually feel better within 3 to 5 days. So how do we prevent it? We prevent it by hand washing before and after cooking, cleaning and washing food products, ensuring daily products are pasteurized. But unfortunately, even with these practices, contamination can still occur. And I'm going to talk about some outbreaks of listeriosis, and unfortunately, they were pretty recent. So, has anyone heard about the boar's head deli meat thing that happened in summer? And it was horrible for everyone because I like my sandwiches. So, from June 11th to July 17th of 2024, a nationwide outbreak of Listeria species was found within boar's head deli meats. And in September, 59 cases and hospitalizations, 10 deaths, and 19 states were affected. How it happened? Basically, contaminated deli meat was pre-sliced and packaged and sold at local food markets. Someone wanted a nice sandwich, they had a sandwich, they got sick. Why it resulted in so many hospitalizations and deaths is that unfortunately deli meats are not heated before consumption, therefore the bacterium Listeria thrived. And we actually just found out that it was Listeria monocytogenes. And Boar's Head response, they immediately acted by recalling all infected deli products from the shelves within partner establishments. And the plant where the bacterium originated was closed indefinitely. And the company issued a statement stating that the liverwurst processing was a source of contamination and that they would rectify the situation by permanently discontinuing the product. So at least they acted fast, but I mean, I'm glad they did because a lot of people were affected. And then also, something that also happened, I like Costco, but I guess not anymore because another outbreak happened with Costco. And then also recently Trader Joe's with carrots. I don't know what's going on. But basically, in October 9th to October 13, 2024, Costco food contamination with 111 cases of Kirkland Signature Smoked Salmon. It came from a corporation, Acme Smoked Fish. The seafood product was distributed to the Southeast Costco Distribution Center in West Palm Beach, Florida, and Costco warehouse stores. And October 25 in 2024, the FDA published the Costco salmon recall on their website, so it actually took a bit for the FDA to kind of let people know what was going on. And in present time, as of right now, there have not been any confirmed hospitalizations or deaths regarding this outbreak, so I guess that's good. What this second outbreak says, though, it says, following not only 3 months after the first Listeria outbreak, it's just a testament and speaks volumes on how fast the bacterium spreads in food and how lethal it can be in people's lives and how common this is and that it really affects public health safety. So the second bacteria we're going to be talking about is Escherichia coli, known as E. coli. The foundation and shape is that it is a lactose fermenter, it's non-spore forming, it's an anaerobic bacterium, and it's a gram-negative bacillus. So we test it, it shows up as catalase positive, oxidase negative, and E. coli is the most common bacterium within the human GI tract. In general, symptoms are mild gastroenteritis, septic shock, and renal failure. On colony morphology, specifically on sheep blood agar, E. coli colonies appear large, circular, gray, and moist with beta hemolysis. And E. coli is identified as a commensal intestinal flora and can be found on floors of hospitals and long-term care facilities. So on the left is a microscopic picture of what it looks like on a microscope, and on the right is what it looks like on sheep blood agar. So it has a lot of virulence factors, so I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. So the first one is ETEC, known as enterotoxinogenic E. coli. It expresses fimbriae that enable the bacterium to attach to the intestinal wall, and once connected, ETEC releases a heat labile toxin known as LT and or heat stabile toxin ST that leads to free water secretion into the intestinal lumen, and that creates what's known as water diarrhea, traveler's diarrhea. So you know when you travel and all of a sudden your stomach sacks up, this is basically what's happening. And then the second one is EPEC, enteropathogenic E. coli. EPEC is known as the infantile diarrhea and is found within nurseries and daycares and can eventually become chronic. EPEC damages and destroys villi and causes lesions. And then the third one is EAEC, known as enteroaggregated E. coli. It has two subcategories. So first one is DAEC, known as diffusers adherent, and enteroaggregated EAEC. And DAEC results in diarrhea and chronic UTIs, and EAEC results in diarrhea that persists for over 2 weeks, which, I don't think that's really good on the human body to have diarrhea for 2 weeks. I honestly don't know how you can survive that. But EIEC, known as it's a main causative agent of dysentery and destroys the intestinal mucosa. And the mechanism of EIEC, known as enteroinvasive E. coli, first it invades a cell, then multiplies, then spreads to adjacent cells within the virulence plasmid. And then lastly, the one I'm going to be focusing on is STEC, but also EHEC. So EHEC has a specific code, serotype, which is 0157. H7, known as the Shiga toxin E. coli, and the virulence factor that we will be focusing on is that it has two antigens, O and H. EHEC is known for causing hemorrhagic diarrhea and colitis. So what does that mean? That means it first starts out as watery and then gradually becomes bloody. And EHEC is also linked to hemolytic uremic syndrome, known as HUS. The toxins within the EHEC are varotoxin ISTX1 and varotoxin 2 STX2, known as HUS. So then I'm going to go in a bit more on the STEC. So it's caused by the Shiga toxin producing E. coli variant and also the serotype. In general, STEC is not life-threatening. However, when STEC manifests into HUS, then you are at risk for severe illness and death is greatly increased. So it has a way higher number of infected at 97,000 in the United States. However, the deaths are not as high as Listeria monocytogenes. So I guess that's good. But at-risk children under 5, the elderly, and the individuals with weakened immune system. And the reservoir is ruminants, in particular cattle. Transmission is consumption of contaminated food. Symptoms are fever, abdominal pain, extreme fatigue, decreased frequency of urination, bruising, and or pallor. Treatment, honestly, I think you just have to pray and write it out. It basically says rehydration and anti-diarrheal for mild cases. So I guess just take some fluids, sit on the toilet for a few hours. It is what it is. And then, but if it does get bad, you're gonna have to resort to antibiotics such as rifaximin, eziothromycin, and ciprofloxacin are used. The reason why we don't want to use antibiotics for mild cases is that it could result in antibiotic resistance. And prevention is wash and sanitize your hands, cutting boards, and food products with soap and water. But so the problem is that the main produce that's affected by STEC is leafy greens like romaine lettuce. It should be kept refrigerated at 41 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. But the problem with this is that you can't exactly guarantee that it's going to be regulated at that temperature. So that's why usually this gets affected. You can't really cook lettuce. So you can wash it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the bacteria is cleaned off the STEC found with a romaine lettuce, but they were unaware of the location. Then, a few days later, April 13, 2018, the region within the contaminated lettuce was identified. Chalk romaine from the Yuma-grown region was a source of STEC. Then months later, June 28, 2018, CDC announced that the outbreak has ended. The illness toll was 210 individuals infected with 96 hospitalizations, 5 deaths, and 36 states were infected. Why it happened is that the hypothesis is that the romaine lettuce in the Yuma-grown regions were not properly regulated. So as I mentioned in the last slide, you should really make sure that they're regulated at a certain temperature, but probably global warming, or they just didn't really take good care of it. That's probably how this happened. In general, the FDA struggled with identifying a specific ranch, as one single production lot may contain romaine lettuce from multiple ranches. We're talking hundreds, and may trace back really challenging. And the Arizona Leafy Greens Marketing Agreement response, which is the corporation that were in charge of the Yuma ranches, is that they confirmed that the romaine lettuce was no longer being produced and distributed from the Yuma-grown region. So they also acted accordingly. So after I explained all the bacterium and after we have seen the outbreaks, what do we do? So the future food production should focus on the prevention of foodborne illness. And we have something known as HACCP, which is defined as a management system in which food is addressed through observation of certain hazards from raw produce to consumption. So they're a different form of the FDA. This one focuses more on the raw produce. FDA focuses more on, okay, we lit a fire, how do we put it out? HACCP doesn't want the fire to happen, so they work on prevention. But here's the problem, is HACCP oftentimes overlooks and can't exactly ensure workers who handle produce and food are providing with the right PPE, and cannot promise 100% food safety even with the strict regulations enforced. And so another problem is that there are so many outbreaks that have been happening within the past year. HACCP really just can't manage everything. And there are 7 principles of HACCP. 1 is hazard analysis. 2 is critical control points, known as CCP. 3, determination. 4, establishing critical limits. 5, monitoring procedures. 6, corrective actions. And 7, verification and documentation. So they're pretty good at maintaining, and they're really thorough, but the problem is that you can only manage so many cases. But one option on how to physically help and try to manage and help out HACCP is something known as SMARTR, or SMRTR. So what is SMARTR? It's an automated software that the goal is to work in tandem with HACCP to achieve higher levels of food safety compliance and reduce risks associated with foodborne illness, and also reduce human error. So an example of how SMARTR is used is that the STEC romaine lettuce outbreak took months for the FDA to locate the specific ranch. Even though it says a few days, some articles I've shown said that this happened way before the FDA was even aware. So some shady business was going on, but it took them a long time to locate a specific branch, which allowed for more individuals to become infected. And then also looking at the Listeria monocytogenes, it also took a long time for it to be identified and to find ways to take action. And so with the help of SMARTR, the supplier compliance and content management systems can ensure that all the suppliers are adherent to the HACCP guidelines, which creates a more secure supply chain and easier to track any contaminated food. So think of SMARTR as like the bodyguard for HACCP. HACCP is enforcing these guidelines, but SMARTR is making sure that they're actually being done by using automated systems. So you can have a corporation such as HACCP manage everything. This is just using technology to have more eyes on look at this. And so here's the positives for SMARTR. It will use its automated system to maintain and continuously monitor perfect temperature and humidity levels in storage and production areas. So it would also help growing romaine lettuce and making sure it's at the right temperature. And also it has the ability to provide adequate clockwork like washing of the produce and properly labeling to prevent any errors, like with the STEC Yuma romaine lettuce incident. And so with all the automated system, the proper labeling aspect is relieving a big concern for individuals who have certain allergies to one type of food that has been contaminated with another type of food. Also, with the salmon outbreak, they all had one lot. So one lot consisted of many infected cases of salmon. So one was infected, but one wasn't. So what Smarter would do is that they would have an automated system to make sure that labeling is properly done. And also, we don't want someone with an allergy to salmon eating something that may have been exposed to salmon. Like they want to have a steak or something and it's been exposed, because people are touching salmon and then we're not sure that they're exactly washing their hands. And so the negative is that essentially we really can't determine that people are going to follow guidelines, but also it's very expensive. So just for the outbreaks, 48 million cases were reported, leading to economic costs of up to $90 billion. And with the outbreaks already costing billions of dollars, teaming up with Smarter might require even more money, and also it's very time consuming. So my closing statements. Was it on this side the whole time?
It's all right.
Oh, well, you know what, guys? Here it is now. Well, I just summarized everything. If you want to take a peek. I worked really hard making sure it's even too. It's okay. So here are my closing statements. So L-monocytogenes and E.coli are two bacteria that are resilient and they're really hard to kill. And they love to escape from antibiotic resistance. And so it's pertinent to follow as many safety guidelines as possible. And ways to combat food contamination are simple methods such as washing hands and surfaces and staying home if you're unwell. And with the help of modern day systems such as Smarter, it can be easier to regulate and ensure food handling safety, and to ensure that the citizens of the United States are receiving safe and healthy food products. Changes must be made and health safety standards must be met. So these are my references. There's a whole bunch of them. And thank you. So I want to say a big thank you to the Honors Committee, to my mentors, Dr. Nancy Goodyear and Dr. Kelly Carleen, and to my friends and family who have supported me trying to figure out what to put on my presentation. And any questions for me? That's all. Thank you.